G'day, Stu from UAV Futures here, and today, well, we're going to be checking out this very interesting frame right here. Now, this is the Anubis. This is a 5-inch from Drone Eclipse, which I think are a really cool company. I've heard a lot about them, but I'm all about checking out new designs, new things. I love the Talon we looked at the other day because I want to find the best frames out there. They're going to work the best for me, and I'm excited for this one because look at that profile. Look how thin that drone is. So this should have some pretty cool characteristics. It looks like it's built a little bit upside down. So what we're going to do, this is a part 1 review. We're going to stick it on the bench, break it down, have a look at how the frame goes together, have a look at some of its interesting parts, and then in part 2, we'll take it out to the field and rip it around. Alright, enough rambling, let's stick it on the bench and get started. Alrighty, so here it is on the bench, and something a little bit crazy. Don't you hate it when you do the whole review and then you look down and you've turned your microphone off? Because I really do. So let's have a take 2. Hopefully things should run a little bit more streamlined now. So anyway, here it is on the bench, and the first thing I'm going to say is, look at this thing. I really like quads that have something unique about them, something like innovating or something trying to push the hobby in a different direction, and I think the Anubis from Drone Eclipse is definitely doing that in spades. So I'm going to flash some pictures on the screen. Have a think, how thick is your quad? And then look at this thing's entire profile. It is absolutely super streamlined right there, so it should slice through the air, or anyway, it should have a fantastic center of gravity, because I think that's what this whole quad is going for. So what we're going to do, look, mine came pre-built. I'm not sure if they do that on the side or not. I'll link it in the description down below anyway. We can check it out over at Drone Eclipse. And I do want to give them a bit of a shout out, because I know they've done some stuff with NERC, FPV, or Bull Buffet, or some things like that. They've been really helpful to a lot of people in the hobby, and look, this is the first I've ever seen of their products on the bench, but I know in the hobby they've been very, very helpful. Anyway, let's get on with it. Let's get on with having a look at the Anubis frame, and the first thing I'm going to do, let's stick it on the scales and weigh the bad boy. So attach my antenna, take your bets. How much do you think it's going to weigh? Because it's definitely not a super light sort of frame. It does feel a little bit, not heavy, but pretty, I guess, average weight. Coming in at 350 grams. So, you know, not the heaviest and also not the lightest. Now remember, this does have some, I think some fire motors on the outside. They're some of my favorite motors. I really liked using those for a long time. So I'm a big fan of those DYS fires, and they look super awesome. Now there's probably three major things that I want to talk about with this frame. Number one, we spoke about that profile, and we will have a look at all the measurements and everything like that in a little bit. But I want to flash some pictures up and just talk about that tiny little profile here. So that absolutely streamlined or extremely slammed middle section. It's going to make for a very, very tight build, so I definitely don't recommend it maybe for first-time builders. And everything is built sort of upside down. So on the bottom, this is where you've got, I'm just going to zero these in. On the bottom right here, this is where you've got your, I don't know if this is in focus, so you're like 1.5mm thick base plate. And usually the base plate, that's the thick part. But on the Anubis, you know, that's sort of like the top plate, I guess you would say. And the real star of the show is this bad boy right here. So the bottom, what you would traditionally say is the bottom brace or the bottom arms, that actually sits on the top of your quad. So you're almost building something in reverse. So I'm pretty keen to try this out. What does that actually mean? Well, you're going to have an extreme center of gravity. So you're going to have your mass really centralized. It should mean this thing is super agile, super zippy when you're actually in behind the goggles flying around. I think this thing is going to feel great in the air, but that does come at a cost. Now, before I talk about that cost, I will mention, look at the front of this FPV camera right here. You have, obviously we've got like a Runcam, so I think it's the Swift 2 in there, but you get this 3D printed mount at the front, which can be adjusted to sort of put your camera up or down. It holds it very, very snug. It's going to be okay from any crashes from the top, but I do worry if you're going to hit a flag or something like that, you're going to be smashing your lens. So I'm not 100% sure if I like this 3D printed mount. It feels very tough. I think it's, I could be wrong anyway, drop it down in the comments, but it is, I think it's nylon that it's been printed in. This is probably a good little time to mention you do get this little GoPro adapter, or you can order this one as well. This simply slides in here in some I'll put some pictures on the screen anyway in some really ingenuitive ways. And if it was me and I was flying around, I would leave this on here all the time, because that's going to give your camera more protection. So that might just save your camera. Even if there's no GoPro inside this camera mount, it is going to save your FPV camera in a really, really bad crash. Now the final part I want to talk about, and this is probably the elephant in the room, and this is where I think this frame could do with some improving. So if you got your normal battery on here, hang on, I'll go get a battery. You strap it in. You'll notice there's 2 Velcro straps, which is one more than what I usually use. So I'm just going to do this back one up because that's probably the important part I want to talk about. You're flying around, right? That looks fantastic. Right now it looks like it's a really centralized, you know, the mass is all in the middle in the prop line. But what happens when you put some props on? That one spins just. This one is, well, let's see if we can get them to both. Look at that. You really have to pick your battery very, very carefully. And I don't know about you guys, but I hate losing batteries to prop strikes. It is so frustrating to realize you've just nicked it. It's just pinched that cell. And goodbye 40 bucks, goodbye batteries. So what they recommend to do is to put your battery on its side, have your leads at the front and sort of swing them down and connect them up like this. You guys can see this little XT60 connector, so you connect it up like that. That's okay, but even then, depending on which battery, so get out of the way Velcro strap, let's just pretend these aren't here for a second. Oh, it wants me to do them up. Even then, when your battery's on the side, you have like no clearance. If you just move in the smallest part, you've sliced your battery. That I'm really not a big fan of. You need some special batteries, and when you're going to fly this around, like these are probably the only ones I feel safe, and I don't even think safe is the right word. These are the only ones I'm going to put on here because they're the smallest ones I could find, and I'm a bit sketchy. I'm going to be very upset, Drone Eclipse, if I fly this around and I end up slicing one of my batteries. Now I know you do have Velcro straps, and you're really going to have to, I'm going to be really cranking mine down. And I can see I do have a little bit more clearance, but I don't think it's enough. What I really recommend, my biggest feature, what I think Drone Eclipse should do with this frame, give us the option, maybe they can just redesign these back arms just a little bit to come out like one, just even 1 centimeter more on each side, and that would let us rock these props, no issues about slicing into our battery, because at the moment, I'm really worried about prop strikes. And drop a comment down below if you think Drone Eclipse should, maybe give the options. Can you buy, I don't know what you call them, extender arms or something like that? Or if you don't want to do that, even some little motor mounts you could put a little extra bolt on the end and just make your motors come out, or some way to slide them out. That's up to you guys to design that part, but I really don't like how I could be slicing my props open. So that's a bit of a look. Oh, did we mention the arms? The arms do feel very strong and very rigid because really we measured the bottom plate. Let's measure these arms. They're coming in at about 4 mils thick. I don't know if you guys can see that. So the arms are 4 mils thick. It feels very, very rigid. I don't think you're going to be busting the frame anytime whatsoever. And the other little cool part, speaking of the actual frame itself, it's got a nice little adapter here for your RP or your SMA adapter. Whatever adapter comes out of your VTX, you can just simply screw this in at the back. So overall, look, I like frames that do some things right, and I think, push some things in the right ways and innovations and all that sort of stuff, but I can't skip over that fact. I am worried about prop strikes. That's definitely something in the part 2 review that we're going to be a little bit wary of. I think with that centralized mass, it's going to handle fantastic, but is it going to be, I don't want it to handle fantastic if it costs me a battery. Alrighty, so there it is. There's my review of the Anubis from Drone Eclipse, and I really like this frame. I think it does a lot of things right. It's got some good innovations there, but there is 2 things that I guess I'm concerned about. I don't know if they're good or bad yet because it does need some actual field testing. Number 1, this camera mount, look, it's going to be okay once we put the GoPro mount on. So it might be okay to protect it, but without the GoPro mount, your camera might be a little bit vulnerable at the front right there. And then the other part, look, really, depending on what sort of battery, you might need to get some specific batteries for this one because I really am concerned about prop strikes. I know I've wrecked tons of batteries in the past from prop slicing into them, so at the moment, I'm a little bit wary to fly this one. We're still going to do it, so definitely stay tuned for part 2 because that's when we're going to take it out, rip it around the field, we'll give you some flight impressions, and we'll also hand it over to some other pilots as well. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Drop some comments down below. What do you think about this frame? What do you think about, I know Drone Eclipse has done a lot actually, so I want to give a little shout out to them because I know they've been in the hobby for a long time and they're a really supporting company. But anyway, what do you guys think about this frame? Subscribe for more FPV related content, and as always, happy flying. Alrighty, so hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. Definitely subscribe if you're new to the channel and check out these videos. And I'm also going to leave a little link here to my Patreon page because I've got some fantastic Patreon supporters and I like to give back to them as well. So if you want to join the UAV Futures family, there's things like bonus Velcro straps, little bundles of FPV goodies and things like that that also get sent out. Anyway, happy flying.